Haven't you realized by now the property system is broken? They are cashing in right now. They're making millions and you haven't made a penny. So in this video today, I'm going to be exposing how the rich actually make money in property. No BS, you have to watch the video all the way through. So here are the top ways to make money in property. Rent to rent. This is where you rent out a room from a landlord and then you rent it out on an individual basis from a HMO, or it could be on a nightly basis like a service accommodation. Stop right there. I know what you're gonna say. So I decided to use my buddy Google to define HMO.
A house in multiple occupation, HMO, is a property rented out by at least 3 people who are not from one household, for example a family, but share facilities like the bathroom and kitchen.
This is really just a house share. What happens is people tend to rent out big properties and then they rent out the individual rooms. So rent service accommodation is where you rent out the property from the landlord and then you basically charge it on a nightly basis. This is usually for contractors, on builders, or people that are going on holiday. So the big thing about this is you essentially have guests instead of tenants. Let's go to the pros and the cons. Looking at the business model, you can definitely see that rent to rent does actually work. If you look across multiple faceted industries such as Airbnb, look at Uber. Uber makes millions and millions from renting out cars, but do they actually own a single car? No, they don't. For rent to rent, it's definitely set to where anyone can do it and you don't need a lot of money to do it. To be honest, it's not that risky either. There's a lot more profit in rent to rent than there is to other models. So one of the main problems about rent to rent is that the property actually isn't yours. And one of the ways that people are making money right now in property isn't through buying 1 or 2 houses. It's by the capital appreciation that comes over time. The reason why the housing, the property market has been such a big thing is because over a 30 to 40 year period, it beats a lot of assets. So simply put, if it's not yours, you ain't getting the benefits. Sometimes you can have it where the landlord just pulls out of the agreement for your rent-to-rent deal, and because it's not your property, you can't do anything about it. A heavy disadvantage of the rent-to-rent service accommodation model is that every time you have guests in, you have to check if anything's been stolen. You have to check like the inventory and make sure everything's okay. And this can be tiring because if you're in a different city and you have to keep coming back to, let's say, Sunderland, for example, and you're in Liverpool, it's going to be very tiring to check on your property constantly after like a week or so and tenants have just been in. You know what I mean? It's just not really it. Like, you don't want to have to be going back and forth. Remember, for service accommodation, you have to clean the property every single time a guest comes into your property, and you definitely want more guests than not. So you're going to be cleaning it quite often. You have to pay some cleaners to do it, which is fine, but for some people it can become tedious. Nevertheless, rent to rent is an upcoming model and this is one of the ways they're getting rich. Switching to deal sourcing, this is where you source potential property deals to buyers and negotiate all the terms and conditions and the breakdown costs for the deal itself. This saves them overall a lot of time. Before deal sourcing, they typically charge a rate. This is around $3,000 to $4,000 per deal. So the pros would be high ticket sales. So the more sales you do, the better. And generally, you're going to earn a lot more money if you focus on deal sourcing as opposed to other things. One of the beautiful things about deal sourcing is you can do it from home or you can do it from anywhere in the world. You can have a 9 to 5 and still be doing deal sourcing. So the downside of deal sourcing is that you have to have expert knowledge and you have to know what you're talking about. For example, if the actual outcome is a lot more expensive than you predicted, then so not only are you wrecking your credibility because the buyer is not going to purchase another deal from you, but also you still may be responsible because in the fine print, they may come back to bite you. Sometimes it's hard to get clarity with the numbers. This is where experience comes in. You need to have experience when deal sourcing. Another way the rich are making money is through lease options. A lease option is a contract that allows a tenant to rent out a property with the option to buy it with a predetermined price at the end of the lease term. I'm quickly going to list off the pros and the cons for the lease options. Lease options are more affordable than a traditional home and you get to pay a lower upfront cost. Lease options are definitely great for when the property is of value, because when something of value and it's going to rise anyway, you buying it property at a certain price always is very beneficial. For example, if you buy it at, let's say, 300,000 and then the property is going to rise to 500,000, well, you're always going to be at a advantage. These options tend to give you the freedom to test out the property. So if you want to test out the property before you actually fully purchase it, you can, because you're tending to managing it or living in it for a certain amount of time before you actually buy the asset. For you to secure the property, you're going to have to make an upfront payment, and that can be annoying because let's say you actually don't want to go through later and buy the property, then that upfront payment is just a waste of time, really. So when you're looking at a lease option, you have to consider the fact that you are fully responsible for that property. Anyone that knows anything about lease options knows that the contracts are so long-winded. So you have to make sure you have to get a good solicitor to represent you, because the fine print is so important. It can be the difference between you getting charged an extra 10k or an extra 20k upon the prices. The last thing you want is to be stuck in a position where you legally have to buy something or you legally have to sell something. That would be insane. So now that you know how the rich are making money in property, I've got one question for you. Do you really think you're going to get rich by just buying a mortgage?